Greetings in the name of Odu and Odunumare, all that is good and great, all that is blessed and beautiful, all that is creative and conscious, and all that is positive and possible. May the warm sun rays greet you each and every morning, and may your day always be full of joy. Hotep, I am Adisa Olabayo Bankole, your host to Mind Vibes, Thoughts from a Curious Mind, a bi-monthly podcast series dealing with and examining social phenomena then and now. Now, this is a special Mind Vibe podcast, and I entitle it, To Forego Your Humanity is Insanity Itself. But before we begin, hit that like button, subscribe, share, leave a comment. Now, this comes from my Off the Chest series. To forego your humanity is insanity itself. Quote unquote, we can either walk the high road of brotherhood or the low road of man's inhumanity to man. Martin Luther King. In the aftermath of Queen Elizabeth II's passing, there has been great consternation with regards to how people around the world reacted. On one hand, you had many people in many of the countries of Europe bemoan the loss of what they came to see as their sovereign mother, since many have lived under her reign for nearly 70 years, and who came to think of her as part of their beloved family. However, on the other hand, there are many people around the world who do not share those feelings. In fact, many of them celebrated her passing, for she was the symbol of the colonization that helped build her empire, whose cruelty and absolute domination reshaped many of these people's culture and nearly destroyed their cultural experience and identity. Take, for instance, India. Lord Macaulay once claimed, "Let us make them English in every way. The only thing that will identify them from not being English will be the color of their skin." Indeed, many Indians still to this day saw the Queen as part of their everyday life, even to the point of imitating the English and foregoing their own cultural experience. Now, I want to stop here because my queen and I saw this up close because we went to a wedding. And in the beginning, when the wedding happened, I mean, they was in their cultural traditions, I mean, colorful clothes, everything. And I mean, it was just a marvelous experience. And speaking their language, and it was a Hindu ceremony. So we got to see her walk around, and we got to see, the beautiful colors and the gold, red, and all of that. It was really nice. But we had to leave and come back for the reception. Now, when we came back from the reception, it was, oh man, it was like night and day. I mean, the women had on their saras and stuff, they're like everyday saras and stuff, not like what they had, at the wedding. But the men, oh man, I could not believe. I mean, they were in their three-piece European suits. I could not believe it. Hard shoes, dark colors. I mean, there was no even light colors or anything. It was brown, black, little pinstripe. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. And I asked one of the Indians, well, wait a minute, why did y'all change? I mean, into these suits and stuff. He said, well, before it was just for show. This here is the real thing. My jaws dropped. So did my queen. I could not believe it. Right? Jeff Bezos, or Bozo, depending on how you wish to view this absolute horror passing himself off as a human being, tweeted to a beautiful scholarly professor that her comments about the Queen's death was not, quote unquote, becoming of a professor, as he thinks that he is somewhat human, without any regards to this Nigerian professor's life's experience being under the Queen's monarchy and their treatment to her, quote unquote, subjects. The arrogance that many in the Euro-white community that have been displayed against not only this beautiful African princess, but to, quote unquote, our communities as well is disingenuous at best, at worst, hypocritical to say the least. Now, in early 1990s, when the great leader of his people, Nelson Mandela, was released from prison, he toured America. He was doing an interview that was televised in New York City. Now, he was asked a question about his affiliation with then Arafat, Gaddafi, and Castro, because they were supposed to be the enemies of America and inhumane and all this other garbage and nonsense. His response was to the interviewer, quote unquote, one of the mistakes which has some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies. This is what I am seeing with this condemnation toward those people of color with regards to the passing of the Queen of England. First off, she was the Queen of England. And though she laid claim to other nations inhabited by people of color, she was not culturally or otherwise the queen of that particular cultural group. And secondly, whatever monarchy she had sway over, she did not earn. Nor did her colonized people give to her their humanity willingly. There is no mutual respect for a people. There is no mutual respect for a people you or your country have terrorized and brutalized and stole from. Yet, here lies the paradox. Yes, she was important in many ways, and perhaps she had throughout her lifetime had done much good for her people or subjects, and indeed may have paid some modicum of interest in the lives of the other cultural people where her people dominated. But like Brother Hughley would say, it may explain you, but it doesn't excuse you. She was still, if but a figurehead, a symbol of great destruction, domination, and death, and to many people of color throughout the world. Even in her 70 years' reign, she either oversaw or overlooked many atrocities that happened during her time. These acts cannot be easily dismissed as part and parcel of that monarchy and its history. Excuse me. You cannot, respect a people that you're dominating. That's an oxymoron. It's a contradiction in terms. And so this queen could never see herself respecting the African people of Nigeria or the Jamaican people of Jamaica. She could not even see herself respecting the people of Ireland. Now, I don't think the northern part, but the southern part of Ireland, and they weren't all that bemoaning of her death. In fact, many of them were celebrating it. Because once you become a conqueror, you are not bringing anything to the people and the land that you conquer, you are taking. And that's basically what England did. They were the forerunners outside of Portugal, because Portugal was the first to deal with the east side of Africa, right? But that's the European countries. They built their wealth over the destruction and domination of people of color. You know? Now, we here in America, as African Americans, we don't have that direct direct connection to the quote unquote queen, you know. So our I guess our reaction to her passing is because once we the colonies formed the American society and broke away from England, we were independent, so we didn't have that kind of direct connection. But our memory is the fact that England started it. And in fact, in an opinion piece written by Zishan Alim titled Meghan Markle Proved an Uncomfortable Truth About the Queen's Legacy, he writes, quote unquote, "There's no way to make the royal family a meaningfully progressive enterprise without in some way displacing its essence. That episode in which Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, accused the royals of racism toward her unborn child, and the palace responded with talk of, quote-unquote, appointing a diversity czar, exposed the absurdity of attempts to reform the monarchy. Now, as the British used the occasion of Elizabeth's death to consider whether they wished to carry on with the tradition of monarchy, and definitely, they do well to remember that one of the characteristics of the monarchy is that it can't be culturally modernized. And what Mr. Seshan is saying is that, almost like Sarah Palin when she said, you could put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. You can't take something that has been so entrenched and ingrained for almost 400 years. They built their whole empire on the diamonds and gold and the enslavement of African people. In fact, in a movie, I think it was Shaka Zulu, the king says, look out there, this is a dreary weather. The sun sets on England in Zululand. And again, like I said, Lord Macaulay say, hey, we're going to make the Indian English. They were devastated when they lost England. England was devastated when they lost India, because they saw India as their crown jewel. Mr. Seshan further elucidated his opinion by stating, quote unquote, but one must take a step back and consider the cosmic futility of accusing British royals of racism. The British monarchy is historically one of the greatest engines of white supremacy the world has ever seen. Having overseen the expansion of the most populous empire in global history, and having enthusiastically supported slavery. Today, the monarchy, outwardly more enlightened, diplomatic, and philanthropic relationship with the Commonwealth, provides cultural and legal cover for British Empire 2.0, whereby Britain is able to extract resources from post-colonial nations on hugely favorable economic terms. Domination of the global South is baked into the monarchy's DNA, and asking it to become a space for more equitable behavior isn't just quixotic, it's asking the wrong question. And again, Mr. Alim is correct in his analysis. So the grievances that many of in the Euro-white communities in their quote-unquote outrage about our feelings about a queen's death, their queen's death, or, who they deem as their queen or special person's death, along with her monarchy, is truly, again, hypocritical and misplaced. The question that they should be asking is what the now Prince Charles will do now that he has stepped into the foot of his mother. Because, lest we forget, they still have sway over many of their former colonies. For me, however, the biggest question is what these former colonies will do. Will they go the way of Barbados, or will they cling on to a relic of a monarchy that has lived long past its prime, and take their rightful step into the human saga and become free, full human beings with all the rights endowed to them by the laws of the universe, and throw away the shackles of an old fading monarchy. To this day, I still have family members from the Caribbean island that tend to still be joined to the hips of the monarchy, and was for some reason unknown to me mourned as heavy and deeply as the English people themselves. That's nonsense. That is nonsense. I got family members from the Caribbean. Stop it. I just smacked them one time. Hit them upside the head. Bop. Sit your behind down. What's wrong with you? Yes, it's sad for anybody to pass. But to get so wrapped up into this kind of royalty and this, I have a cousin that she's so caught up with Meghan and Harry and whatever. What? Come on, get a life. Get a life. That's what I say. No one should express any form of condemnation towards other people's reaction to another's death or suffering if you either have no knowledge or do not desire to learn what others have gone through, especially if you are a member of that group who have inflicted the atrocities to those people. When Dylan Ruth slaughtered innocent souls and snatched them from the black community in his heinous act at the church in South Carolina, a black essayist wrote an essay on why, quote-unquote, we as black people should somehow or another take on the mantles of sainthood and forgive our perpetrators. Her essay was right on target. Even though many in the Anglo community perhaps did not agree with her assessment. But what this black essayist was giving voice to was the idea that, quote-unquote, we as black people should not be willing to lessen our rights to be angry as other human beings do. That we have the right and indeed the necessity to be and feel the anger at the hostility thrust upon us. To not feel that way is to negate our own humanity and allow those who continue this perpetration to feel that it is their right, their duty, for they to be comforted in the knowledge that we will, quote unquote, forgive, that somehow it is in our DNA to do so. That's nonsense. For someone like Jeff Bezos, the unconscious billionaire, to chastise a person of color with his retort towards her expression, though harsh, was her right as a member of the human community. No one has the right to diminish the pain that they suffer at the hands of someone else, even though those who have done it are long gone. To be the head and beneficiary of that culture and its people's suffering is still painful for those people. Though the physical pain may have vanished, memories do not. To forego your humanity is insanity itself. To allow the perpetrator to dictate your suffering is not only inhumane, but it should be unacceptable from those who are at the brunt end of that deal. So, I think, like the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said to the then Mike Wallace, I think you should be quiet. This is what I say to Bozo and the others. I think you should remain silent with your condemnation because you really don't have that right to diminish our pain. I mean, this is something that we have to deal with, is to dealing with other people's suffering, not to walk in other people's shoes because you're not going to be able to do that, but to empathize with other people, particularly if you are the one who have caused the pain. That's the first sign of healing, is to empathize with them and to try to not understand it, but to deal with the reality that, you're going through it. Because if we are to go forth into this world of humanity and to bring some form of utopia and make it real, then we have to begin to learn not only to communicate with each other, but to have somewhat an empathy with what we are going through. Otherwise, all we do is perpetuate and to placate other people's feelings at the behest of our own. And that is not humanity. This is Additional Bio Bancoli with another episode of Mind Vibes, Thoughts from a Curious Mind. And this is a special one. This will be going up soon. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, leave a comment, share, and subscribe. Once again, Additional Bio Bancoli saying, may we all bend the arc of humanity towards justice and hope that peace and love can reign. Madasi.